All right. Hi, guys. Welcome back to another
Hello.
episode of recapping Survivor Syracuse Heroes versus Villains. I am Sabrina once more. Y'all.
I'm Mike. I'm back this week again. Pleasure to be here all the time.
I'm Nick. Here again. Love talking about Survivor Syracuse.
Hey everybody, I'm Geneva. I was on season 2, Snakes and Secrets with Mike, and I did a recap last season, and so I'm glad to be back, talk about this episode, especially considering I know a lot of the season 2 people, so yeah, looking forward to diving in.
Hell yeah. Let's dive in then. All right. So, just to recap really quickly what we're coming from right now. So, starting off with the episode, they had just voted Owen out, they had blindsided him. So, that is just like, a lot going on there. Um, you know, uh, it seems like the Wentworth Four is like starting to become more apparent, all of that. And yeah, they're just like really getting into it now that we're down to 8. So, based off of, I guess, that vote, like going into this vote, do you think we can like kind of start to see what type of like what relationships will last to the end or as long as like these players are going to be in this game?
I feel that you mentioned the Wentworth Four, and I just feel like Jack and Jake are gonna go at each other. I think too quickly. Like it's like a Cold War situation. They're both like not taking the shot because they're both benefiting from it, but they're so paranoid. I think Jack more so than Jake. I think Jake handles his paranoia a little better and can talk it out easier with himself. Um, I think that relationship's going to break, and I think that Abby is going to stick with Jake definitely. Like that is the relationship that I always hear. Like those are the two most solid I feel in this game.
They're kind of like, oh, sorry.
No,
If
you're good.
anyone remembers the Cartoon Network, it was a Cartoon Network show. It's like the two mouses, mice. Oh my god, not mouse, mice. Like one's black and one's white. It's like they're always trying to like get each other and be like,
Like Tom and Jerry,
like
except that's
yeah.
not.
But
That's what I was
I don't remember what it's called, but
They were like spies, right? Like,
yeah, like spies.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, that's that. That's what
It's okay. Yeah, I think I agree with Mike in terms of the Jack and Jake thing. Although I think that they don't realize actually how much they do need each other. Um and and I think it's really because especially since Owen is gone and Owen was kind of a really big threat, there are limited threats that are left in the game, and so like or big names, I guess, or people who stand out. And so like other than that, really it's Hannah. I mean, you also kind of have Mitch just because he returned and came back, but other than that, there isn't anyone personally who like stands out as a huge threat to me. So I think timing is very important on when they turn on each other because you have to make sure that you have, those shields in the game because you can easily be taken out when people realize they don't need you anymore. So I think that that's kind of probably the potential problem that could lead there. But it definitely seems like, the Wentworth Four definitely kind of have that, solid base. But it's the question of, where how long Abby is really going to stick with certain people in that, or even Gabby. So I think thinking about that I think is key. And then also I guess based on how things seem, it seems like you got Cam and Kat seem to as heroes seem to be aligned in that sense, but otherwise I think there aren't a lot of, I guess, like super tight groups. It seems like people are really kind of starting to try to bridge, the gap between heroes and villains, but obviously there's still kind of, murky waters.
Yeah, I think I agree with what Geneva just said. I think that's something I noticed a lot this season is that especially now at this point, everyone's kind of playing, and everyone's playing a really well game, or a game very well, and they all have a chance to make it to the end, I think. And something that I noticed a lot in this episode was people deciding to bridge those gaps and figure out who do they want to sit next to at the end, and they're starting to make those moves now. Their end game plan. That I heard that a lot from. I remember specifically Kat being like, "This is how I set myself up for end game." I remember Jake talking about who he wanted to sit next to at the end. So that's definitely the conversation right now in the game.
Yeah. No, for sure. Lots
Unfortunately for Kat, I don't think she set up her endgame. she ended up not being able to, but
Sometimes you swing and miss.
Yeah.
well, hey, it happens.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll definitely, I think, touch more on. I think as we're delving into like where the disconnect was, you know,
Mhm.
with that and why that came to play. Because I think even with the edit, that might have been unclear, but I know some insider info that I'll
Mhm.
disclose to y'all later.
Word. So let's get into the challenge really quickly. So, cute little nostalgic throwback. We go back to the first challenge ever. Um, competed in Survivor, Syracuse history. So they start off in their little team portion, and then they go off to their little immunity or individual immunity portion where they like all balance the little thing. Luke announces that Kat did win this in her first season, so to see her win that again is pretty cool, and we see her giving the idol clue to Cam. So I guess just like really quick, did you guys like the challenge? I don't know. What's your tea about it?
I thought it was fun, and I thought it was very fitting that the last two people were season one folks who played in it before, and Kat won it again. So clearly, that's her challenge. So yeah,
But I was like, I guess that could have been predicted from the beginning, most
right.
likely going into that. So then I guess in the sense it's like, well, maybe I would have wished if we did have this challenge that like maybe if Kat wasn't in the game or, you know, like that sort of thing, just because I think, you know, Kat and Jake kind of had an automatic advantage over everyone else. So that's kind of the only thing about bringing something back, but I did kind of like, the multi-layer aspects of the challenge. The typical balancing, we also see that in season 2 a lot. I think, being able to, also transport the water, being able to, strategically collect as much as you can, the mixture of all different old things that we've seen definitely on Survivor Syracuse. But so that was mainly my only criticism. I thought it was great, but I think that was the only thing was like, well, then it's not much of a surprise that Kat won, considering.
I agree with that a little bit too. But I do really like it because I love challenges where they pair people together because it adds just the extra level of what do I do in this challenge? Because if you get paired with someone who really want to get out that week, it's like, do I give up my shot at immunity so they can't have a shot at immunity, or do I just look out for myself and like risk them being able to get immunity in the second round, but I'll still be able to be there and try and win it from them?
So I have a follow-up question for you, Mike, then. Do you feel like you might have saw any of that potentially happening in this challenge, or maybe people seem to be potentially sabotaging, or do you feel like you didn't kind of see that?
Who were the pairs? Because I remember, I think it was Abby and Kat were together.
Mm-hmm.
No, Jake and Kat were together, right?
No,
Um,
Abby and Kat and Jake and Gabby.
Mm-hmm.
Abby and Kat, Jake and Kat.
it was Abby, Kat, Jake, and Hannah, and then it was Mitch, Gabby, Jack, and
Oh, that's right.
yeah.
Well, yeah. So the teams were Jack,
Huh.
Mish, Cam, Gabby. The teams were Jack, Mish, Cam, Gabby, and then Abby, Jake, Kat, and Hannah. And then the two pairs for the ball balancing were Abby and Kat and Jack and Gabby. And then you had Mitch and Jake running, and then you had Hannah and I guess
Yeah.
doing that
Okay.
water. So that so there are like multiple elements in that.
I think I'm not gonna speak for them, but I do think it's easily possible. You can it is so like that late in the game. It is so easy to just be like, I need this person to be in front of me and eligible to vote, so I can't go this week. So I am just going to do whatever I can to make sure they do not win.
Mm-hmm.
I very much think someone could have thrown it.
Yeah. Will we ever know? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah,
But
if someone gets booted in the future, or if there's a future after show and you heard this, let us know if you maybe did potentially try to sabotage this challenge.
yes, give us the tea. But yeah. Um, good shit, good shit. All right, so getting into the week leading up to the vote. So Cam says that she gave the clue to Mitch that she got like the previous week, and that he ended up giving it to Hannah and Jack. So that alters the trust between Cam and Mitch, which, as we saw previously in the game, that was a relationship to keep an eye on. So I feel like since the merge, we've almost seen like Mitch kind of teetering in the middle between like Cam and Hannah and stuff. So I guess where do you think Mitch's mind was during this week where, as we saw, like Hannah's name was on the block? And I don't know, what do you think his thought process was? And with
Well,
giving like the clue away and all that.
Well, first, I guess one thing I'd say is I guess this Cam Mitch relationship isn't necessarily a Geneva Mitch relationship. So, based off of, at least maybe Cam's interpretation of what happened. But she also mentioned, too, I think in her confessional that she didn't realize that, it's like that the person who wins immunity is giving out the clue and that that person doesn't necessarily get the clue. And so, she kind of talked about it with Mitch and that kind of led to the distrust. But I guess with the interpretation that she had, assuming that maybe that person would already have the clue, I guess, and Mitch won immunity, theoretically I feel like he should have the entitlement to kind of tell anyone he wants, if he gets the clue and won immunity. So I didn't necessarily see it as a sense of distrust, but he did, I guess, potentially lie about it.
Mhm.
But I think the thing about it is we have to realize that, like, with a returning season, especially a season like this, we have a lot of pre-existing relationships. And Mitch and Hannah had a really close relationship in season 2, but obviously because of the blind side of the transitional tribe, that didn't really go further, and it really was more kind of me and Mitch moving forward. And so, like, I think because with that familiarity, and he knows that he and Hannah already have that bond, he's going to, I think, also lean on his relationship with Hannah in addition to his relationship with the heroes. And it seems like he was kind of starting to reform something with Jack. I know that they went idol hunting together at some point. So I think he's trying to keep his options open, especially as he is rejoining the game and having a new life in the game. So as you can see, he told Jack and Hannah about the clue because he's also working with them. So I understand, I think, Cam's feeling about that distrust, but I'm also kind of like, I guess theoretically it's like you wouldn't have gotten the clue if Mitch didn't decide to get it granted to you. So it's like, I think that in a sense, I think it's fine if that makes sense, but I can see why, she felt like that was kind of a distrust because he lied about it.
It is kind of funny because I feel like that's something she could have asked about or something. Like, I'm the only one who got this clue, right? And that would have been like yeah, like from production or something. Um, and also like Mitch, I feel like if she like was like, Mitch, did you get the clue too? Knowing Mitch, because I played with him once before too, I feel like he would have just said, no, I didn't get the clue. It's just you. I feel like he would have just told the truth. But she gave it to him, and then he did what he wanted with it. So I can't blame him for doing that. And then kind of what Geneva just said, like, it's hard to go into a new game with like some new people and some people you played with before, because as much as you want to say this is a new season and like you want to do new things, like you think about those past relationships you had and that you were able to trust them before, so like you deep down want to trust them again regardless.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like Mike's having some technical
Mike is out.
difficulties. Hopefully he comes back soon. But for now, in his place will be that little loading circle, I suppose.
But that's okay. The show must go on.
Right.
And Mike will join us when he needs to join us. It's all
Of
good.
course, yes. Hopefully we see him soon.
I mean, do you have any thoughts about that,
Oh,
Sab? Like in terms of, I guess when it comes to, I guess Mitch telling Jack and Hannah about the clue?
I'm so sorry. My brain literally
No, I was
just
just wondering if you had any thoughts about it too.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess just based off of if I put myself in Cam's shoes, like, I could definitely see how that would be, like, a mistrusting type of thing. Sometimes, like, it doesn't come to you to, like, just ask about it, anything like that, so I could see it from that standpoint, especially when idle clues are running rampant and, p this idol especially, people are, like, on the hunt for it, as we've seen, which segues into our next point. People keep speculating about the clues, they keep talking about it, whatever. And then all of a sudden, Jake finds the idol, and he now has 2 idols. So, that's crazy. Crazy stuff. So, what will this do for his game essentially at this point?
I feel like I'm a broken record because I come on here and I feel like I praise Jake's game every week, but like he keeps giving me stuff to like be like, wow, that's really good. Like he has 2 idols. Like what? Unless you James yourself, which I don't think Jake will because he's a very smart social player as well. Like he is so secure, like so secure.
Yeah.
It goes to show it's like you never really know because for weeks people have been pointing out that Jake is a huge threat, and he hasn't had immunity every week. So they've had multiple opportunities to get him out, but they keep being like, "We'll have another chance. We'll have another chance." And now it's gotten to the point where it's like he's almost guaranteed to make it to the finale if they keep it up like this. He has a free ride there, and they basically gave it to him.
Yeah, but I also think that even though this, is good for Jake, I think it's also bad for Jake. I think having 2 idols comes with danger. I've played in some orgs past Survivor, and when people were kind of aware that I had things like idols and fire tokens and things like that, I became a huge target just because people started trying to monitor where advantages were. And it wasn't necessarily that I was going to be using them in one way or another. It was just more, people wanted to be able to manage this, the unknown, or potentially having it not, negatively affect them in their favor. So I feel like the thing is also Jake needs to know the right time, to play these advantages, because I think he must know that his name is going around. So also, when is it a fake out? When is it not? But also, I think because he's such a huge threat, like he, needs to make sure that um, he can kind of push that target away from him, so people focus less on flushing an idol, or because that's sometimes what could be the backfiring situation where it's like, oh, like Jake decides not to play his idol because he wants to keep his idol, but then in reality, like votes go weirdly in some way, and then he could have gotten voted out. So I think that he has to be continuously careful and really focus on those relationships, making sure that he's still good with people, especially like the Wentworth Four, but also realizing that like one of the problems that, can come is if you take out your shields too early, they're going to come for you and then you're going to be vulnerable. So even if he makes it to 5, right? What's going to happen in 4, 3, like there could still be issues. So he really, even though he has these advantages, that doesn't necessarily make him immune. So he has to be able to still figure out how he's going to get there, because people know he's made it to the end before. So he's going to have to be able to navigate through that.
I have a question for you guys. Is there ever a situation where you just don't play the idols because it stacks your resume to your on paper resume too much and it looks too flashy?
I think it only looks flashy if it's, like, an actual, like, for real idol play, like, you feel like you're in danger, so you're gonna play it. Sometimes towards the end, like, you do wanna just, like, play that idol just to be safe, whatever. I mean, it definitely does reveal that you do have an idol, but, um, it wouldn't be as impressive as playing it correctly,
Mhm.
in my opinion.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'd rather play an idol correctly than risk going home and not playing an idol at all. Because especially when you have that much power. Now if you have if he had like one idol, then I can understand why he would maybe hold on to it very closely. But I think since he has two and people are aware that he has stuff, I think there's been a lot of discussion about a Jake idol. I think also potentially getting rid of that to reduce suspicion, I think also can be good. But if he can also try to figure out how to use it in a strategic way, whether it's on him or on someone else, that could also be another way to utilize an idol to get what you want in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of different ways that idols can be handled in the game of Survivor. I think it really all just depends on the specific game that you're playing in and how you think people are gonna perceive it. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, moving on, the feud is building up as it has been the last few episodes, the Hannah and Jack feud. So Hannah starts talking about how Jack has just been absolutely, like, hellish during this game, like, took her out super early season 2, like, this season, just, like, stuff was, like, not going great, and one of my favorite lines of the episode where she says, "Henceforth, he must die." Loved it. But yeah, so we see a lot of tension between them, and obviously, as we saw how, like, the vote turned out, like, it really was, like, this I feel like it was just, like, an epic almost, like, just some sort of epic battle that just, like, really came to a head, so just tell me what you guys think about that, like, how that happened throughout this episode, because there's a lot to cover. I could hit specific points, but I feel like there's just, like, an overarching, like, theme of it,
I'm gonna
so
let
go.
you all go first because I could say a lot. So
Well, personally, I feel like Hannah, the feud got the best of her. She got two in her head, I feel like. Because I think that it could have come to a tie, and that could have been her saving grace this week. But I think she really genuinely thought that the votes could go to Jake instead, obviously, because that's where she put her vote. And I think it got the best of her, unfortunately. She is a huge character in both of the seasons that
well,
she
she
was
voted for
in.
Jack, just to clarify.
Did she vote for Jack?
She did.
That's what
Pat
I
and
think that's what I
Cam
meant to
voted
say.
for
I
Jake.
mix up Jack and Jake all the time.
Yeah.
And it confuses me when I watch too because I'm like, wait, they're talking about this guy, not the other guy.
Yeah, it doesn't
But
have
yes,
how
I
the
feel
I
like
both
meant
of
to
their
say
names have J, A's, and K's in them. So.
right, exactly. I meant to say she got the Jack feud. It got the best of her, and I think that she could have maybe gotten it on a tie instead, but I don't know. She got in her head a little bit this week, I think, and I don't know. That's all I have to say. I guess she got in her head, and I feel bad for her because she really makes a season what it is, in my opinion.
I just think like there was three groups in this boat. There was the Wentworth
Mhm.
Four, there was Cam and Mitch, and then there was Kat and Cam. And I just think the Wentworth Four just outplayed the other two groups
Yeah,
because they set it up so that there was Kat and Cam voting for Jake, and then Gabby and Jake got Mitch and Hannah to vote for Jack, and now you have Kat trying to tell Hannah, like, you have to vote with us. You have to vote with us. And the Wentworth Four still pulls it out. Like,
yeah,
they simply just outplayed the other two groups.
yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I'd like to provide some context because I think people don't know why Hannah voted for Jack in this instance. So kind of like Mike was talking about a lot of work from the Wentworth Four. I'd like to note specifically Jake and Gabby were doing a lot to convince Hannah and Jack really to come after each other. And this is where my frustration was because I wish that Hannah and Jack communicated with each other as all of this was boiling up, and it didn't really seem like that was happening. But as you kind of heard a lot in the vlogs, even Jake kind of mentioned, oh, I don't like how Jack talks about Hannah or Abby or whatever. And so they were like Jake and Gabby were actually saying a lot of the stuff to Hannah like, constantly. And so, they told her exactly what she wanted to hear. They talked to her a lot constantly. They were even like putting stuff in, like seeds about Kat, saying that she was crazy, like whenever they could. And so I think that was also what was really significant as to why there was the disconnect between what Kat was telling her and what she ended up doing. So she started to have a bit of, paranoia with Kat because of what, Jake and, and Gabby were saying. So it wasn't just this whole, oh, we hate Jack, so that's why she's voting out Jack. It's just you can't trust Kat either. So when it came to the vote and why it led to the 4-2-2, that was kind of, a part of it as well. It wasn't just, this whole, okay, well, I'm mad at Jack. But if you notice, Jack did this whole vlog too about how he's tired of trying to even go on calls with Hannah. And so I think part of that is like, I think Hannah's valid in the sense where she wants to target Jack, because the thing is, Jack has kind of made it clear, I think, with his actions that she is not a priority to him in this game, right? And it should have been very easy for them to work together and make it as far as they can. I know that he has told me that he, in certain points, he tried to deflect off of Hannah, behind the scenes and things like that. But I think one of the things that comes into play with this whole situation is like, if you show someone that they're not a priority, if you're not going to get on calls with them, if you're not if you're not entertaining these sorts of discussions, then it's very clear to Hannah that even if you're not outright saying Hannah's name, it doesn't sound like you're vouching for Hannah at all, right? So,
Right.
in a sense, I can see why it came to this point. And so, this is unfortunately even like Jack was getting a lot from Jake and Gabby too about what was going on with the vote as well. So, they were telling him stuff. And so he had a lot of, but they didn't communicate. They didn't talk it out. They didn't, kind of say what was going on. And I know also, just to even kind of you know, thing is that Hannah didn't know really who to trust. She didn't know she could even trust Kat. We were last week we were seeing Kat talking about, who was throwing out Hannah's name. Was it her? Was it Jack? That sort of thing. So it's like who was she supposed to, at the time she didn't know who to turn to. So I think that there was just a lot of complexity there that I think wasn't shown in the edit. um and I know we'll continue to talk more about this and why, also some of the reasons why she's voted out, but I also wanted to bring that perspective in, but I also didn't want to give that narrative before you guys provided your opinion.
No, yeah, that provides a lot of context, I think, and it makes sense why, because Hannah's a smart player. She won Sequester. Like, you have to be extremely smart, I think, to
Twice.
win that. Twice, she won Sequester twice. So she's not like someone to like fool around with. She's a great player. So they got a great player. Good. They really had her under their spell, I guess.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really think that Jake and Gabby, like, just masterclass manipulation. Like,
Mhm.
to be able to do that to two separate alliances, and I guess like it is taking advantage of a little pre-existing paranoia with each other, and some people might not respect that. I very much respect it because I love seeing chaos in Survivor. But yeah, I very much love it as a fan, and just seeing a 4-2-2 vote happen, like, it gets me excited.
When you've got this many villains left in the game, I feel like it's almost inevitable to see that high of a class of like manipulation and like really planting those seeds, especially at this point. So yes, the context like definitely, I feel like it's like coming together a bit and all
Mhm.
that.
And it's like this was the outcome I wanted least in the episode, because I think it would have been so entertaining to watch Jake or Jack go out.
Mhm.
But
It would have been a
it's
great opportunity.
it's still exciting that they had the predictable main target who everyone was throwing their name around as a throwaway vote the entire merge. At least it was an exciting vote. It was an exciting way to go home.
Yeah, definitely an exciting way to go home. Um, I don't think Hannah was the right move for this week,
No.
Nope.
but we'll get to
Absolutely not.
that. We'll get to
Except
that
for the people on
later.
top. I think
Huh?
I think except for the people on top, which
Mhm.
Except for
would be
people on
Jake
top. Mhm.
and Abby.
Mhm.
For sure.
You're right. But I think also another thing to provide, and since Hannah isn't here, I'm gonna provide, I think, some context on things that she's even expressed to me too, is coming into season 4, she really, really wanted to play a different game. Her whole objective really was to hang out with people, form connections, and make it further than the transitional tribe and make the jury. Those were her main objectives. But as we kind of saw, especially I think through the last few vlogs specifically, and you've probably also seen the YouTube comments on how people have responded to this, even in the early superlatives, people still had this perception of Hannah from season 2 that I don't think was erased at all. And I think that unfortunately was a situation that she had to deal with. So I think because of that, she really wanted to work with Jake. She really wanted to work with Abby. She really wanted to work with the Wentworth Four. Like, as you saw, you saw some of those vlogs with her and Gabby. Like she also was complimenting a lot of people on this cast, saying how much potential, how she genuinely wanted to like play with these people and have a good time with them. But unfortunately, with how things happened, it's like she didn't really get that chance. So it's like she kind of had to do what she could to survive. I mean, she made some moves in the pre-merge, and she did what she could. But obviously, like there were situations where it's like she wanted to work with Jack, but then Jack wasn't really communicating with her. She wanted to work with these people, but you see these vlogs are like, oh well, we don't trust her, and then a lot of people are calling her move emotional to vote with Mitch, but it's like, why wouldn't she vote with Mitch? She can trust Mitch. Mitch is her friend. Like, why would she not? Like, so it's like some of those sorts of things. But then, so I think those are some, just things thrown out there that I think are also kind of, important to her story and her narrative that I think, sometimes don't always make the edit. Just to bring up.
I think the last thing I want to say is Hannah is iconic, and I don't think that there was going to be there wouldn't have been an All Stars right now without her. She's iconic.
I have to agree with that. Like when we were going through casting for the season, like first person that came up,
Absolutely.
was Hannah Dolan, and she very much showed us under the radar Hannah this season and did it very well. I think to where she could, up until the point where she couldn't be under the radar because they wouldn't let her be under the radar.
Mhm.
So it's like there were weeks in that pre-merge I was like, there's no reason that they shouldn't have voted for Hannah at this point, and they haven't. So it's like, hats off.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think one question that she's also just generally asked, like herself, and just like thinking about this vote is like, what was the purpose of voting her out? Was it because she was a threat? Was it because people didn't want her in the game? Because it's like, if people supposedly dislike her, as people have expressed in their vlogs, then wouldn't you potentially think of her as a non-threat to bring to the end? If people don't like her, then she's probably not going to get the votes if she doesn't necessarily have, what seems to be the social pull to go with it. So, some of these are sorts of the questions. And I know we touched a little bit on maybe why this is a potentially a bad move for, a number of people. I mean, it definitely does benefit a few people. But I think that the timing of this was slightly off because, especially, Hannah really just wanted to be a number for people. And there were points in the game where she was kind of that number and had a crucial point in votes. So I think that just looking at how the game went out, like, and how it like played out with this episode, um it's just kind of like she did kind of have that support to give people support, but it seems like they didn't take it. And I think that could also negatively impact people's games moving forward, taking her out at this time, because if anything, she was a number. She was willing to work with her. And like people like Jake and Jack have mentioned, like, oh, we have this sort of potential like influence over Hannah. So it's like, why aren't you still utilizing that? So those sorts of things I think are, questions that I've thought about and even things Hannah's brought up as well. So I think those are, things that I just wanted to add.
I feel like the cast like I do remember them saying throughout the episode, like outside of the game, they love Hannah, like they love spending time with her. It's just inside the game, she would cause them like stress, I guess. So it's like it sucks because when someone is like you said, Geneva, like use them as someone to bring along because people dislike them in the game, and I think that's what Kat was trying to do, really. And she just couldn't this week because she couldn't. They tricked her. They tricked
Yeah,
her
they
this
literally got Hannah to not talk to her because of the stuff they were saying that Kat was doing. So that just became, I think, like a huge impact on why that vote wasn't a
Yeah.
tie.
Yeah, for sure. Just like, I don't know, in this game so far, and like it probably will continue. Like there are just so many different elements, like so many different layers to why these people make these decisions. Like it's not so super clear cut. So yeah,
Nope.
it'll
It's never easy. It's never easy to make these decisions because like sometimes I'm like, why? It's like why did we choose this person? It's like, oh no, it was just random. It was just random. We like spun around in a circle and decided to vote. Mike knows about that from season 2.
Yeah.
You know, or like just like, oh, this person I talked to the least. So, you know, there are so many different, I think, factors that come into play with a vote. But it's just definitely interesting to see how this, you know, people were really able to delve into this, you know, relationship that was strong when the season started, you know, but then started fracturing because, you know, I think certain elements from season 2 kept coming back, and how, you know, I think, you know, I know I feel like there are some things that like, you know, Jack did differently, but I also feel like some of his game was similar in terms of like I constantly got frustrated with him, which also kind of led to why at the first merge vote I was like, yeah, we're doing this double idol play and sending him home. You know what I'm saying? So I think that that's also, you know, I think that also that comes into play with how you communicate with people, and where that kind of leads to how they perceive you in the game and how much they can stand having you in the game. And I think that probably also got to a boiling point why, you know, maybe Hannah wanted to get out Jack, or, you know, Jack wanted out Hannah, or Jake, you know, all this sort of stuff. So I think that also comes into play too. It's like how people communicate with people too. And when people communicate with people too. Like even Jake was like, "What, Jack? Why are you messaging me like at 11:30? You know, like that sort of thing. Why are you talking about Survivor?" So, you know, I think that could also impact things too.
yeah, totally. Also, you set up a very nice segue for me to move on to our next topic, just so we could let all these people, whoever's watching, watch Survivor at 8. But like real quick, like we were talking about getting Jake out as a threat, stuff like that. Um, Jack's name was thrown a little bit. So I guess like just in Jack's situation, people were saying like reasons that they wanted to keep Jack. Like for example, Gabby said that she thinks like allying him will expand her longevity in the game, which in her case, like that is certainly something valid. But like for another player, like that's like maybe not like their reason. So like we see that like those votes were split between Jake and Jack, but theoretically, if they were to choose either Jake or Jack, to tie it up with, who would probably be the better option to do that, considering that they're both these big threats?
I almost feel like Jake might be, just because I feel like more people might be willing in a tie to then flip onto him over Hannah. It's hard to say because I think like I said before, everyone's playing and everyone's playing well. But I think between those two, I think more people will be willing to flip onto Jake.
Word.
I'm gonna say the same, but for Jack, I think people might be more willing to flip onto Jack because they are a little rubbed the wrong way by just his strong arm tactics.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm going to give arguments for both just because I could see it going either way. So I think when it comes to Jake, I think that we know Jake has a lot of power. Jake has made it to the end. You know, Jake, you know, the only I mean, I think when it comes to also like the social aspect of the game, I think Jake, is doing really well this season, especially because I know that also came into play with how season one went. So I think that like when it comes to that and how insulated Jake is, I feel like getting, flipping on to Jake, in like a revote situation, I think that's probably, a move that probably opens up the game for a lot of people. But also, I mean, even though Jack is rubbing people the wrong way, he still has this form of like a social charm that allows people to still gravitate towards him. And, he makes a lot of people feel like secure. And that's why they're like, oh, like, I think, Gabby mentioned like, yeah, no, I want to keep him in because he tells me information, And so like that's like I think a thing that's also really valuable. But I also think that sometimes, the things that you say and the way you say them or the way you interact with people can really impact how people, perceive you in the game. And since people kind of knew of Jack's, like if we're going back to Jack's reputation in season 2, then it's kind of like you want to get someone like that out of the game, especially because he was able to, have this dominant alliance. And right now he still has a quite of a dominant alliance and, those connections. And so I think that taking out Jack, that also could be another reason, but it could also be because he is, he's not only just a threat, but also the issue with how, I guess, maybe how he could be communicating with people, and, honing into that villain role. Because I think sometimes, I guess with a themed season like this, that can be quite easy to fall into that role.
For sure.
I
Yeah.
like to compare Jack to Tony Soprano only because it's like, this is my teacher told me that The Sopranos is about a bad man who has the opportunity to become good. And
Mhm.
it's like, I feel like this is Jack's season where is a villain who had the opportunity to become a hero, but he chooses not to become the hero every time. And I think it really is amplified in one of his last vlogs where he's just like laughing at the fact that Hannah's trying to get him out. And I
When he
think
said salivating, I was like, Jack, okay, that's going a little too far for me. I feel weird
Yeah.
about you doing that. But that's the thing is also sometimes like I've even asked him about certain things that he said, and he's like, oh, I forgot that I said that. And I'm like, what? And he's like, well, do you remember everything you said? I said, not necessarily, but I remember these sorts of things. You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember how he said I was super annoying in season 2 the week that he went out. And I'm like, but you're the one who texted me at like 1 a.m. and started a conversation, and I'm the annoying one. So, things like that. Where it's just like, I think that, you have to be aware of what you're saying and how you're saying things to people, even I think also in those confessionals. But I think to touch on what you said, Mike, like I think that he really wants to do it because I also see that he kind of wanted to forge relationship with Mitch, forge relationship with the other heroes, but then it's also like, no, I see season 2 all over again. He gave an idol to someone else and Mitch went home the same. So it's just like, what? So it's just kind of like funny in that way. But I think I think he definitely has set himself up a lot better this season too, and has really I think aside from his relationship with Hannah, I think overall a lot of his relationships are pretty strong here.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Tony Soprano. Shout out to the AMC unit. Mike, right?
yes,
I'm talking about the right class, right?
so,
Okay.
exactly when we went over Breaking Bad, he compared it to The Sopranos.
Okay. Okay,
Oh,
cool.
wow.
I just want to clarify that before we
Yes,
move
that was
on.
exactly what I pulled it from.
Yeah, and then yeah, no, the salivating comment was,
I was like, ooh.
it was,
But Jack, I love you, but you say some crazy things.
yeah.
I love Villain Jack. Love Puppy.
Oh man, but yeah. And then I guess we already covered this. I had it written down, but Geneva filled us in on the situation as to why Hannah didn't like listen to Kat. Kat, who's like the biggest hero threat, I think here, is trying to get Mitch and Hannah to vote with her and Cam on Jake. So we already kind of dove into that, but going into this vote, um, like all of that aside, this 4 votes Hannah, 2 votes Jake, 2 votes Jack. So on that lovely night, you know, nice little outside vote off.
I love the outside ones.
Yeah,
It's great to see the evolution from winter to spring throughout the
mhm.
season.
Yeah, and they had the villain red playing on the quadrangle, or shining on the quadrangle light.
Symbolic.
Symbolic villain symbolism.
A lot of villain energy going on at the tribal
Mhm.
council.
For
Mhm.
sure, for sure. But I guess, after we see Hannah go, I feel like we already talked about it a little bit, but now that Hannah has been voted out, what does this mean for the game? They're down to 7. Like, it's 100% individual. Where do you go from here? Like, do you stick with the people you're with, or, like, do you have to make drastic moves to get yourself ahead? What's gonna happen? What do you
I
think is gonna happen?
I
Sorry.
think we saw a little bit in the next episode preview. It seemed like some people were starting to be willing to switch sides or spill tea or just set themselves up for endgame. Because you don't know who you're going to be sitting next to at the end of the day, especially this late in the game. Like anybody can go home, um, and so they're just trying to mend relationships if they need to.
Yeah, we saw those girls were connecting in the car. So
Mhm.
if I were the men, I'd be worried.
Mhm.
More not just because of that, but I think generally the men in this game, specifically who are left in the season, are perceived as huge threats for a variety of reasons, and I that's why I also worry for them because of Hannah leaving so soon and how that has kind of shine a like bright light, a spotlight on them in their games. So it'll be interesting to see how they attempt to navigate through this game moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah,
I
based
think
on
Oh,
sorry.
you got it, Sab, you go first.
Oh, it's just gonna be a really quick thing. I was just gonna kind of emphasize Geneva's point and just say, like, yeah, based on that little snippet from the next time on, I think it was Cam, Kat, and Abby. I
Mhm.
would love to see the girls team up and, like, take out one of these huge threats. I think that would be super cool for next episode, but that's literally all I was gonna say, so continue, Mike.
I was gonna say it feels like the easy thing would be Mitch, Cam, and Kat. They all voted wrong. It's like they're the ones clearly in trouble, but it depends a lot who wins immunity next week. If neither Jake or Jack win, we can see something start between them. I think there's a lot of things. There's also like when you have a big power struggle going on between two people, then their second in commands quotes like are then put into the crossfire too. So it's like really anyone can go home. It's exciting. Seven's where legends go. 7-6.
6, yeah, 6 definitely.
Word. Yeah, it'll be so fascinating to see what direction it could possibly go in. Because at this point, if everything falls into the right places, I don't know, that can mean so many different things, to whatever players, to whatever I don't know. Just a lot of different things could happen.
I think that's a good thought, Josh.
Yeah, for sure. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like that move at 8, it just didn't like my friendships aside with these people, I think strategically that was really not the best move for either Jake or Jack. And I know Jake in the comments I think was like, "Sorry for sending out your faves," but I just don't know if that was the right move for Jake, to be honest. Like move like in the long term.
Yeah, I think it definitely wasn't the right move for this week, but honestly, I just feel like that I feel like we've almost because I remember saying like we were talking about last week how we were saying blindsiding Owen also wasn't like the right move. So I feel like right now they're almost stuck in kind of a domino effect
Yeah.
where they just have to keep on going with what they're doing. And like, for the Wentworth 4, like so far it's been like going well, but I think just this domino effect of moves that are starting to like kind of look like they're not really working out that well. Like I think they're kind of stuck in a rut almost.
I will say too, just to add on, I think Kat winning immunity very much saved her this week. I think if she was an option, I think Jake would have targeted her over Hannah because I do think he trusted Hannah more than he trusted Kat.
Yeah.
But because Kat wasn't an option, it seems a lot like it's just like whoever's least close to Jake and Abby and Jack. It's like it's just okay. You're getting peeled off now. Okay, you're getting peeled off now, and it's just Hannah was the one right after Kat, and since Kat was safe, it's like sorry.
Cray. Cray.
Unfortunate.
Well, with these last couple of minutes, I think it would be a wonderful time to do some quick superlatives. So, just really quick, because I feel like I'm anticipating answers for MVP. So let's just get into it really quickly. What do you guys think?
Oh, you know who I'm gonna say.
Right now, it's hard to say because I really want to see Kat and Jake make it to the end. I definitely don't think both of them are going to make it to the end, and I'm not so sure either of them will make it to the end. But I want to see both of them. But out of the two of them, I guess I have to side with Jake. I just feel like he's playing a really exciting game right now.
Yeah, I think it's hard for me to say like a person because I feel like at least like in terms of like where they're positioning to get to the end is because I feel like a lot of people that I think are playing really good games, I think are still in danger. I mean, I think of where Jake is situated now, that's probably more MVP like, especially with the amount of safety he has and those advantages. But then again, I feel like, for instance, there's still, I think, a lot more game to play. I think in terms of who might step into that position, because I still feel like Jake is in danger in the near future, especially if maybe like another big threat in the game goes. So I think it's just kind of hard to say, but I mean, I think it's just because a lot of people are playing pretty different games. There's a lot of definitely like voting blocks and stuff, and we're seeing little things, but I'd say that like a lot of the people who are standing out, I think, are just because names are being constantly said, because I think of past reputations. And I think that's kind of had a huge impact on this merge part of the season. So I think that's why it's a little bit harder for me to answer that question.
Fair.
I mean, it's Jake for me. I think I've been.
Is it Jake for you?
I've been boosting him up this whole podcast.
Oh, Snake. Such a
Number one
snake.
Jake stan.
For sure. But yeah, MVP, episode 12. Let's get into who's in danger for next episode.
You guys want to go first? I have a name if you.
I'm going to say, I know I just said Kat and Jake for MVP, but I'm also going to say that Kat and Jake are in danger for the next episode as well. We touched on it a little bit that Kat could have gone home this episode had she not won immunity. And Jake is a huge target and has some advantages that people may or may not know about. So we will see.
Yeah, I'd say Kat, I'd say Mitch and Jake. I think even though I think, Mitch has come back into the game okay, I think still people might not want to potentially let him go further since he was voted out. So there's paranoia there. And I think just Jake, now is even more of a threat. And since we don't know if whether Kat will be immune or not, she might be vulnerable next week, especially with how this vote went. So I think those are the three, and then, I'd say Jack is a little close behind just because his name was out there. And I think, people are having a response to what he has to say. But I'd say those main three, I think, are the ones that stand out for me for next episode.
Mike, do you have any? Oh, is he frozen?
I think he's frozen.
So.
Oh, he looked.
Yeah, I think
he looked deep in thought.
I think he's frozen. Yeah. So I think he doesn't have a thought. But
I'll give a quick thought.
Back.
Oh,
hello.
Oh my God! There. Okay.
Welcome back.
We can just sign out. We can go through the outros.
Yeah. Sounds good.
What? Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, I was just gonna have one last thing. Any favorite moments from the episode? Last one. Always like to end it on a good note. So
Hannah is such a star, and I loved when she said, henceforth he must die. That's so iconic. I don't know why it wasn't the episode title. It was
Honestly, it should have
beautiful.
been,
Yeah.
especially since this was her last episode, but
Right.
it is what it is. Yeah, and just generally, like, I'm very proud of Hannah in how she played this season. I think that not only did she bring, iconic vlogs, and we saw Arya also in this episode, but I think she really showed why, like, she is an all-star in a lot of different facets, and especially she's had a lot of growth since when we played season 2, especially because she's played a lot of orgs and minis. And so I'm glad that she was able to show the cast that despite, any preconceived notions they had about her because of all the fake idols and stuff like that.
hmm yeah, I think Hannah had a fantastic last episode. I think she for sure left her mark as an under the radar player. I I don't know. It just felt like I don't know. It was just like really cool to see her be able to play this way after setting that goal at the beginning of the season. So, yeah, so kudos to her. Like this is still like she did great. Like there should be like no regrets like getting to like where she got. So, yeah. Oh,
Awesome.
yeah, cool. All right, I guess we'll start with outros. So, I will start with Nick.
I don't know what to say. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, _NLLC_. Sorry that my dogs are barking in the background if you can hear that. Yeah, that's it.
Watch Ballvivor.
Oh, Ballvivor. Season 2 is coming out at some point soon, I was told, but I'm not so sure when.
Yeah, keep a lookout for Ballvivor. All right. Here I'll go over to Geneva.
Thanks for having me on, everybody. You can follow me at Peace Love Jen on Twitter, where I tweet all about reality TV and the other random things in my life. I'm active on Silent Podcast, where we're anything but silent, and that is on Apple, Anchor, and Spotify. In addition, I have a podcast on post-show recaps where I'm covering Bridgerton season 2, and I'm with the Dark Walk crew, my friends Kirsten, Sarah, and Sasha. And we're currently giving recaps twice a week on post-show recaps. So we have our own feed, so you can check out my link tree for that. And I'm also occasionally on Rob Has a Podcast. I'm covering Big Brother Canada and a variety of other shows. So you can check out my link tree and my Twitter for any upcoming content. And thanks again for having me, guys.
Swag. I forgot that they came out with Bridgerton season 2. All right.
Check out the pod.
Cool. All right. I'll go over to Mike.
Follow Syrvivor Syracuse on YouTube. Hit the bell so you get notified when we post videos. And watch us tomorrow at 8 p.m. Thursday for episode 13 of Heroes vs. Villains. Very exciting one. Final 7. We'll see what happens.
Yes, Mike essentially took the words right out of my mouth. Super exciting stuff. Watch episode 13 tomorrow. As always, thank you guys for watching live, whether you're watching live, whether you're watching it back, watching just the season, whatever. I don't know, whatever floats your boat. But yeah, oh, and you can follow me on Instagram, Sabrina_Morrow. I would put my Twitter, but I don't remember what my handle is. So maybe if you dig for it, I don't know. I follow the Survivor Syracuse Twitter, but yeah. All right, let me get back to this. Yeah, thanks guys for sticking around, and yeah, watch episode 13 premiering tomorrow at 8 o'clock p.m. All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.